Brian Urlacher's place among Lobo legends is secure, but the former linebacker and NFL Hall of Famer drew scorn from current football players for his comments regarding the shooting of Jacob Blake. Last week, Mr. Urlacher criticized NBA players for their symbolic walkout to protest the shooting by police of the black man in Kenosha, Wisconsin, saying the fellow Hall of Famer Brett Favre played a game the day his dad died. Current Lobo players were not happy with Mr. Urlacher in a lengthy statement. And Crystal, there's a risk to sticking your neck out as an athlete, certainly. You know, we all get that. But what did you make of Mr. Urlacher's statement, his actual words?
You know, everybody's absolutely entitled to their own opinion. And I just have to preface that by saying that personally, I was very disappointed in Brian Urlacher for saying something like that, especially since so many people look at him as not only one of the best defensive players in the NFL, a Hall of Famer, a Lobo alumni, and add to the list of accolades that he has. Mm-hmm. As a public figure, there's very much a responsibility to make sure that we're influencing society in a very positive way. So of course people were listening to his statement. And quite honestly, even though you might call Brett Favre one of the best quarterbacks in the world, putting the similarities between the two of walkouts versus somebody playing a game when somebody dies is absolutely absurd and different. Absolutely different, because you know, I look at, I'm a recent golfer, right? And I look at Cameron Champ. He was the only golf athlete that made a significant impact in his statement by not only being a multiracial adult, but he had a black shoe and a white shoe. And something as small as that made waves in the PGA, because it goes to show that actions should be taken. And remember that Black lives absolutely matter. This is a time in our society where everybody's reconsidering the way that they're thinking about race for the better. And if Brian's not going to be a part of that society where we want to rethink race, his statement obviously showed that he wasn't on that train and he wasn't part of that team. And that's his prerogative. However, UNM students speaking out and UNM not doing enough to support those students that disagreed with UNM, I think speaks miles. And I really recommend, I really commend the student athletes for silently protesting, making a difference, knowing that their scholarships could have been on the line because of the fact that they spoke their mind. I'm really proud of the students, and I'm proud of the AD and the basketball and the coaches for gathering with those students, because that shows more action of change than Brian Urlacher's message on social media.
Mm-hmm. Serge, let me do this to you. Let me read his full quote to you. I think for folks who may not know how incendiary this quote is, it's probably good to hear this for context. Quote, Brett Favre played the Monday Night Football game the day his dad died, threw 4 TDs in the first half, and was a legend for playing in the face of adversity. NBA players boycott the playoffs because a dude reaching for a knife, wanted on a sexual assault warrant, was shot by police, end quote. That's an amazing quote when you really think about it. The back half of that is really quite something. What's your reaction to that, Serge?
Well, first it was just to be dismissive, right, and to not really give much weight to what is, you know, not a very well thought out and well supported statement. But I'm also, you know, it's depressing to see that folks are trying to recast what the NBA players' message as, you know, we're not tough enough to play, or something along those lines, and as well as sort of a willful distortion of the motivations behind that, right? And sort of shrugging off all of the Black Lives Matter, all of the protests against police action, and all of the conversation that's been, you know, going on for ages and building over the course of the summer. So I was, you know, disappointed by that, as well as this notion that, you know, that Brian Urlacher or anyone else gets to decide when the NBA players are allowed to use their platform to send the message that they want to send, right? I was, you know, other folks talking about, these highly paid athletes trying to take the night off, right?
Right.
So I'm not sure what income bracket is allowed to protest, but I was disappointed by the whole tenor of that conversation, and that was critical and almost willfully misunderstanding the actions of athletes who were using their position to try to draw attention to important issues that they, to them and to their communities.
Yeah,
and
it's an important point you just made there. I mean, when you think about it, this man is a 13-year NFL veteran, in a locker room with probably majority black players in that locker room most of those 13 years. How he could cop this attitude after being around so many African-American players for 13 years is it's amazing. Justine, let me read you the quote from UNM. This is interesting and probably important for context for all of us and for viewers as well. Here's the quote from UNM. Regardless of who you are or your relation to this football team, we will no longer tolerate hatred and blatant ignorance directed towards the very existence of so many on this team. We will always stand unified and we will march far across the river towards justice together. A little flowery at the end of there, but the points made. Is that enough in your gut, Justine, from what you heard from UNM to push back against the Urlacher statement?
Yeah, and one of the other things that the UNM student athletes said in their full statement, which I found rang very true and is very striking, is like Brian Urlacher, we won't always be actively playing. Our careers will end, but some of us will always be black. And right. I think Brian Urlacher needs to understand this isn't Lovington in the 90s. This isn't Kaepernick in 2016. This is a different moment. Look at how fast the Bears distance themselves
That's right.
from this hometown hero. He is tone deaf to the max. And I think, as Serge said, it's not a new thing for athletes, for celebrities of all stripes to use their position, to use their wealth, to use their prestige, and try to make social change. But what's new and what really is a threat in this election and a threat to the status quo is to see players like LeBron James, to see players who maybe were not, like Jordan, who took a lot of flack because they didn't come out earlier, coming together, having a real conversation about where we are as a country, and saying we're not going to stand for this. And this isn't the 1960s when black athletes were just to stand back and not speak. And Urlacher needs to get that. And so I think it's a threat. I think, Urlacher's a supporter of Trump. He had just been in the White House with his family, and he's out there stumping. His statement is as political as any.
That's right.
And it's a real threat to have athletes out there saying, no, this time we want real change. This isn't, we've been through 1968 in Mexico City. We've been through Jesse Owens in 1936, 4 gold medals, doesn't get to shake hands at the White House. Okay, this is a different moment.
Good stuff there. Crystal, when you think about it, he was also caught liking a post in support of Mr. Rittenhouse, the young man that shot and killed those folks in Kenosha. That one person in Kenosha, which is interesting. New Lobo coach Danny Gonzalez told the Journal, though, that he's reached out to Urlacher to speak to the team. Is that a smart move?
I actually feel that Coach Gonzalez has shown examples of leadership in positive ways. And if Coach Gonzalez's intention was to create conversations where there could actually be a healthy, productive debate about race and equality, I think that is absolutely the best move possible, because the best thing to do to create a plan to move forward and to change people's minds is not to actually turn your shoulder away from the conflict, but actually to deal with it face on. So I know that Coach Gonzalez had every intention to bridge an opportunity to talk to Urlacher even before this situation happened. But I think he's truly showing that the athletes, rather than running away from a conversation or using your PR person to make a statement, you should absolutely have a meaningful conversation with the source itself. So I think it was a really great move. I don't know the true intention of why he might have asked for this meeting, though, so I can't say that's going to happen. But the guy's got good leader. The guy's a good coach, and the guy knows what to make sure that you're not only good on the field and good on your strategy, but good in the locker room and good in school. So
And whoever can
go
evolve
ahead.
in their thinking. I mean, anybody can evolve in their thinking. I think it's a
Mhm.
healthy conversation.
That's a good point. I really appreciate you saying that. All right, we're out of time on that one. Next, Laura Paskus on her new book called At the Precipice.